Welcome to the CI Tools for Archicad 25 launch. I'm Josh Osborne. I'm the product manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And yes, today we're going to be looking at the new tools for Archicad 25. As you can hopefully see in the message on your screen, the tools have been released for Archicad 25, so you can get started with them right away. You can just, if you already have some tools installed, just run your CI Tools installer. It'll install a update that was just released this morning, and then the tools for Archicad 25 will be available there. And if you don't have them already, just head to My CI and go to the CI Tools section there, and you can download the tools from there. We will be recording this session as well, and a recording will be available on MyCI later on so that you can watch that again later if you need to, or share it with others in your office or something like that. But thanks very much for your patience in this delay that we've had bringing the tools to you for Archicad 25. We do aim to get them released as close to the main Archicad release as possible, but this year it's just taken us a bit longer to get the product up to the point that we're confident in releasing it to you. But thanks in large part to a team of customers who we've been collaborating with, who have been beta testing our tools with us. And of course, thanks to our dedicated in-house team, we're now ready for release. And so without further ado, let's get started. So in today's webinar, we're going to look at some new features in the tools for Archicad 25. We're going to look at some new select objects that are included in the select library for New Zealand and Australian customers and for international premium customers. We're going to be announcing a new tool being available for select for Australia and New Zealand, and finally a quick thanks at the end. If you do have any questions during this session, feel free to put them through in the chat panel. I won't answer them live, but we will keep a record of those and we can get back in touch with you and help you out with any of those things that you have questions about. And you can always use our support system to log a ticket if you have any other questions that you think of later on. So first up, looking at the new features, we're going to start with the Cabinets tool. As you may know, the Cabinets tool was rewritten essentially from scratch back in Archicad 23, and we've been talking to customers since we released that about what we could do with the new base of the tool to make it more useful. And so we've incorporated a couple of changes which we think that you'll be very excited about, and I'm just going to show you through those now. So obviously, this is a CI Tools cabinet. It looks pretty much the same as it did already, but one of the main pieces of feedback that we've had about the tool is that customers want to be able to input the sizes for the cabinet modules numerically, and also to be able to configure their modules and that sort of thing in the cabinet without going into the 3D and moving their partitions around how you do currently. And so that's what we've looked at for this release. So you still can do the existing method of moving everything around in 3D. That's still a good way of working. But if you would prefer to set them out in a interface using numeric values for your sizes, you can do that now as well. So just open the settings for the cabinet and going to modules, and you'll see a familiar looking screen here. The difference being that the selection is now green instead of blue, which is a nice change, nice and minty, I feel. And we've separated things out into tabs along the top here. So it has the settings for the modules, the fronts, and the handles like we had before, but we also now have the settings for the size. So you can go through and you can select one of your modules and set the size here. So this is set to measure from the left at the moment, but you can choose to measure from the right or to just measure proportionally. And you can also adjust the module's height. At the moment, I only have one module vertically. So if I split this into two by clicking this button here, split into two, I can now select one of my modules and I can adjust the width and the height. So you can now do everything inside this interface here. You can start off with just the one module and using the split commands create as many as you need to and then size them to the sizes that you need. So that should be helpful for those of you who prefer to set them out that way, or if what happens in a lot of cases that I have seen is that people like to draw them up in 3D put their partitions in and that sort of thing by eye to get everything looking the way that they want it to, and then you'll be able to now jump into the settings here and make them into actual sensible numbers, so that it makes a more sensible cabinet with nice round numbers like 600 instead of 597 and that sort of thing. The other feature that we've added to the cabinets tool is called spaces, which you can see just down here, down from modules and shelves and dividers. We have this new spaces option here, and this allows you to place things into your cabinets that will actually look like the sorts of things that will be in your cabinet in real life. So it's just to add realism to your model. So in this case, we're showing a preview very similar to what we saw before, and we can select whichever elements we want to add things to. And you can see as soon as I've made a selection here, it's gone to this sort of X-ray view so that we can see what's inside. At the moment, the type is set to none, and that will be the default, but you can go in here and you can choose from a fairly wide range of different things of what you want to put inside this cabinet. So you can see we've got books, bowls, some plates, spice jars, glasses, that sort of thing. And we are looking for feedback on other things you would be interested in putting into these. And essentially what you do is you select the piece that you want to put a space into and then choose what you want to put in there. So I'm going to put a large plate stack in the top. I'm going to put a stack of small plates in the bottom. In the middle, I will add some books. And in the right one, I will add some spice jars. And then because I forgot to do this earlier, I'm just going to pop back into modules and I'm going to take the fronts off so that you can see everything. I'm going to set them all to open shelves. And now if I go to my 3D view for this cabinet, you'll be able to see the lovely spaces that we have filling it. So these, it's placed in the amount of plates that will fit in the space available. Obviously, if you make a bigger cabinet, it'll just throw more plates in. The book's height and color are randomized, as are the spice jar contents. And we also have a feature in the settings for each of these spaces to control specifically what's going on. So for instance, the settings for the book set, you can see the colors that we're choosing for all of the books. And you can also come in here and if you have some favorite books in particular that you want to see the covers of or something like that, you can set those up as images, load them into your surfaces in Archicad, and then come in here and set them using these settings here, and then switch to this map texture as image mode, and that will map the cover of the book to the actual book element that is shown in 3D in your cabinet. So you can get to quite a high degree of accuracy there. Depending on what you're after. And there's corresponding settings for most of the different things. So the plate racks, you can set the sizes of the plates and all that sort of thing. And so essentially what this does is it would just allow you to, without having to do too much extra work, go through and add a bunch of things to your cabinets to make them look more realistic, make them look populated and ready for rendering. The next thing I wanted to look at is the roof coverings tool. One of the things that we've looked at with the roof coverings tool with this version is dealing with roof edges in particular. So we've added a handful of new features related to that. I'm just going to show you two of them. And essentially the first one is that the roof coverings tool is now able to read in more about the settings of the edges that are in the roof underneath. So looking at this piece of roof I have here, I'll just show you what it looks like first. So you can see in this case I've got an asymmetric roof. So the two roofs are joining but at different angles. And one of the things that you can now do using the roof covering is we can make this, I think it's What kind of cladding have I got here? I've got a nice ridged cladding here anyway. And what we can do now, because we know what the edges of the roof look like, we can actually mitre the cladding as well. And so I'm just going to go into the settings here, and I'm going to look at the flashing here. And instead of having a flashing cap over it, I'm going to choose this option here, which is a new option called mitre the covering. Mitre the cladding, sorry. Hit OK on that, and what it will do is it will just carry your cladding all the way over the angle and mitre up nicely in the corner there. And now we can then, of course, make changes to our roof, make changes to the angle, and the claddings will just flex and change that angle so that they follow along. So it just makes a very nice and neat looking mitre there. And because we're also as I said, we're able to detect the edge of the roof now, we can now also have the covering match the roof edge rather than just being vertical like it traditionally has been in the coverings tool. We had a lot of people ask about the ability to match the roof edge, so you can do that now. So if I just select my roof here, if I can select my roof, and I'm just going to adjust this bottom edge here. And instead of being vertical, I'm just going to make it flat instead. Hit OK. And then if I flick back to my 3D view, you will see that the end of the roof covering also changes to be a flat end as well, and it's matching what the roof does. You can override this setting in a setting in the covering. If you want them to always be vertical regardless of what the roof edge is, you can choose to just ignore the roof edges entirely if you want to, but if you are wanting them to bring those through, the roof coverings can do that now. The last tool that I want to look at is the Detail Elements tool. We've added a handful of new detail elements to the tool, which I'm just going to show you through 3 of them now. So the first one is one that we've had quite a few requests for recently, and that is a flashing element. So there's a new detail element tool in the general section called CI Tools Flashing. And what that will do is, obviously it'll draw up flashing, and it has a bunch of preset shapes that you can use for the tool to help you get started with that. These are the preset shapes here. Well, it's most of them, sorry. So with any luck, in a lot of cases, this will match what it is that you're trying to do, and you won't have to do much extra work on them. We've got options to control how thick the flashing is, what the bend radiuses are, and whether you want folds on the first or last edges. And essentially, you can just choose your shape, set the settings you want, and then place it. If you do want to further customize the shape, you can also select the shape first and then say edit the flashing profile. Hit OK, and it will convert the whole thing to nodes, and then you can go through and use the nodes to adjust the piece of flashing to look exactly the way that you want. But of course, it's still obeying all of the rules that we set, so the thickness is set, and the folds at the start and end will still be set as well. So there's a good handful of different shapes there, and if you have other flashing shapes that you come across frequently that you think might be useful in the tool, please do just let us know in a support ticket about that, and we'd be glad to build them into the tool. So that's the flashing detail element. The next one that I wanted to look at is the custom profile. And this is just a nice quick option for those of you who are using custom profiles. If you're wanting to quickly draw up something in your detail view, say a set of rafters or purlins or something, you can come in here, choose the complex profile. It's just loading all the complex profiles that are in your project. Choose the one that you want, and then you can apply a rotation and a multiply to that. So obviously you can just place one of them by itself to get a single custom profile, but you can also quite easily apply a rotation and then a multiplication factor. So we can say here, we want it to multiply, we want the spacing to be 300 and with no offsets, and it will just place a sequence of that complex profile along here, which we can then resize to however long we need it to, and it will just fill in all of the length that's available with the complex profile we've given it at the spacing that we specified. So it's just a nice, quick and easy way to do that. And the last thing I wanted to show you in the detail elements is a new fastening type, which is the rivet, and this is just another addition to our collection of fastening types here. It's just a nice looking 2D rivet. It looks pretty much the way you would expect it to, and you can control most of the settings of it using purple hotspots here, as well as in the interface, obviously, and you can choose whether you want it to be fully opened or fully closed. So that's the Detail Elements Rivet object. All right, next is some new Select library objects. So this is for Australia and New Zealand Select customers and international premium customers. We have a new Select add-on, which assists the Select library in doing some extra stuff that it wouldn't be able to do as just a library. And I'm going to show you how that works. And we also have a handful of new objects in there, the ones listed on screen. And if you just look in the documentation inside the Select library itself, you'll be able to see a full list of everything that's available there. So the new Select add-on you will find in your CI Tools menu under CI Select. And at the moment, it just has one option to update the zone polygons. And the way that this works is that it lets you update the Select library zone stamp. So at the moment, I'm just using regular zone stamps. So I'm just going to go ahead and change my zone stamps to use the Select library one. So all of my zones that are here at the moment are using the residential and recreation zone. So I can just come in here and change the stamp to zone stamp 1940, which is the Select library one. Click OK, and those will update. And you can see if you've already been using this object, it's been around for, I think, a year or two already. And normally what you need to do with it is that once you place your zone, you have to resize the stamp to fit the size of your room, and then it will give you nice dimensions around each of the sides of the zone, and then give you a rounded measurement below the zone stamp. And what the CI Select add-on now allows us to do is we can just go to our CI Tools, CI Select, and say Update Zone Polygons. We'll say OK on this dialog because we want to update everything. And then it goes through and just automatically does that job for you. So it's pushed out all of the dimensions to the sides, and they are dimensioned correctly, and then it's given us our nice rounded value below the stamp as well. And it's done that for all of the zones. If you wanted to do just one at a time, you can just select the zone that you want and then run the same command. And now if you go through and update the sizes of any of your zones or the shapes, you can then just run that command again, and all of your zone stamps will follow along, and they will reflect the change as well. So that's the Zone Stamp 1940 and the CI Select menu from the CI Tools menu, Update Zone Polygons. Another new object that we have just released is the Wall Frame object. This is a fairly simple 2D and 3D wall frame element, and it will let you draw up your wall framing essentially sort of freehand. You can choose the way that the structure works and then modify it to suit. So you can see at the moment we've got the 3D structure of the wall frame. I've got some purple hotspots up here so that I can grab those, and I can modify the top shape of it if you need to do that. And obviously you can stretch and resize the object itself. And if I look in the settings, you can see the sorts of things you can control. So we've got controls for how the wall ends work, various dimensions for all of the pieces that are available. You can choose the amount of plates that are showing, and then clicking on this second menu item here, openings and junctions, you can also add in additional openings and junctions. So I'm just going to hit the you can see the settings for the opening here and modify those as needed, and I'm just going to hit the add an opening button. And as soon as you do that, it puts a little sort of ghost opening over here, and then you can just grab the purple hotspot and move it to wherever you want it to be, let's say there, and it will bring through all of the structure, and it'll restructure the wall frame object to fit that. You can go through and add as many openings to this as you need, or any junctions. Junctions work the same way as openings. And then if you are done with them, you can also just drag them away to remove them. And add them again. So you should be able to go through and build up whatever you want your wall frames to show as, and then you'll be able to pull off nice 3D representations of your wall frames, and they also look like they should do in 2D as well. Next is the accessible toilet object, which we've just added. This was a recent winner in the Object of the Month voting. And the accessible toilet object follows two sets of rules at the moment. It can do New Zealand or Australian rule set, so you can come in here and choose the rule set that you want it to conform to, and then you have various settings for the way that it works. So these are mostly locked because we've chosen a specific rule set. If you choose custom, you can modify these as much as you like, and you can go through and change the settings for whatever you need. We've tried to match them up to the local settings as much as we could, so it should match up with everything. For instance, the backrest option is not turned on in the New Zealand set because that's not required here, but in Australia it is turned on, and so on. We also have settings for the various parts of the accessible toilet layout so that you can make it conform to the things you need it to, and then also make it look the way that you want it to. And all of these elements will show in 3D and in 2D as well. If I go to go to my 2D view, you can see this is what it looks like here, and you get plenty of sort of helper elements showing here what you can do with it. You can move certain elements, but only to the extent that they are allowable in the rule set that you've selected. You can't pull this any further that way, for instance, and that sort of thing. So hopefully this will help you set out those those layouts, and then you'll be able to visualize them in 3D nice and easily as well. We've also got a excuse me, an extrusion object. It's called the extruded profile, and this kind of piggybacks off the previously shown detail element in that it lets you just do something further with the custom profile. In this case, it lets you choose the custom profile that you want. Again, it's just the list of all of the profiles that are in this project. And then you can go through and extrude it through any sort of shape that you want to. So you can see in this one, it's extruding my shape in the way that you expect it to, and you can see that there's a series of purple hotspots here, which are the sort of the baseline of this extrusion path, and I can just click on those and essentially freeformly move them to whatever I want to, and it will carry through that extruded profile to whatever shape you need. So you can use this for all sorts of things. It's a sort of a general use object. It's probably the most useful for doing moldings and that sort of thing, but I'm sure there's plenty of other ways that you could use it. And of course it shows in floor plan view as well, and you can modify the the path using those purple hotspots in floor plan as well, so you can make it match in whichever type of view you need to. All right, so that's the new select objects. And then the final new thing is the CI Annotate tool, which you may know of, you may have heard about. We released it with Archicad 24 last year, and the CI Annotate tool is now available to all New Zealand Select customers and to all Australian Select customers who pay their Select annually. So if you're not sure about whether you qualify to get it or not, you can just talk to your account manager. And the CI Annotate tool is a very handy tool that lets you go through the text in your Archicad project and change the case on the text easily. And it remembers any exclusions that you set up so that you can tell it not to make jib lowercase ever, or not to make your millimeters uppercase, and all that sort of thing. So that's free to those select customers in Archicad 25, and also in Archicad 24, it will be free for you to use in that as well. So if you're already using it in a trial or something like that, that will now just be working for you for the duration of the time that you're on Select. And finally, a big thanks to our beta testers. As I mentioned before, we had a good group of customers. I think some of them are probably in the audience now, in fact, who helped us this year with testing our tools before release. And we got lots of great feedback of things that we're going to be doing in future and things that we put into the tools as well. If you do ever want to be involved with helping us with this sort of thing, your feedback is what powers what we do with our tools. So please do get in touch and let us know if you're interested in that sort of thing. But yes, just again, a big thanks to all of you guys on screen and all of the others who helped us this year. And finally, just a reminder, we do have a lot of other webinars running all the time. We'll be scheduling a few more versions of this webinar for people who missed out today. But just head to myci.centralinnovation.com, and once you log in there, go to the My Select Benefits section and look at the event calendar, and you'll see a list of all of the upcoming webinars that are available for you to register. So you can go through there and pick anything that you want to register for and attend them. I have a Q&A webinar for the CI tools, which happens every Thursday except today at 1 o'clock, where I go over frequently asked questions. There's some other webinars that do the same for Archicad. There's some that do basic training. There's some that cover IFC. So go to that page and just have a look at what's available. There's lots of stuff, and they're all free to select customers. So go and check those out. And also, apparently after this webinar runs, you will be receiving a survey email. Don't forget to fill that in as well, because that will tell us whether you think that these sorts of webinars are useful, what we should change, what we should do different, and that sort of thing. But thanks very much, everyone, for your time. Don't forget to check out those events and go and run your CI Tools installer anytime now. That'll update to 25 and you'll be ready to go. Thanks very much, and I'll catch you at the next one.